This video is sponsored by CyberGhost VPN. New French parliamentary elections, or maybe even new presidential elections. Anything is possible now. Less than a month ago, Emmanuel Macron thought he had found the man to steady the ship. He appointed centrist Sébastien Lecornu as France's new prime minister. And it didn't last at all. Lecornu and his entire government quit on Monday. A shocking twist in France's ongoing political drama, and one that now threatens what little governing power Macron still has left. This makes it Macron's fifth prime minister since 2022, 5 in just 3 years. France is struggling very hard to find political stability. And the result? Well, we might have new elections, and we've identified 3 possible scenarios. But before we get into that, how did France end up here? It all goes back to June 2024, after Emmanuel Macron's party performed so badly in the European elections that he made a bold, and some would say extremely reckless move. He called snap legislative elections, but the gamble did not work. Far from it. The result was a hung parliament that has deadlocked French politics ever since. 3 big blocs emerged: Macron's centrist ensemble, Marine Le Pen's National Rally, and the left-wing Popular Front. Each of them ended up with about a third of the seats, which meant that nobody had a majority, and politics quickly got stuck. Now, in France, the president chooses the prime minister, and since his re-election, Macron had to try several times. First came Elisabeth Borne, then Gabriel Attal, then Michel Barnier, then François Bayrou, and finally Sébastien Lecornu. All of them from the Republican center, which are described as the non-extremist parties of France. And both the far left and far right made sure they paid the price for it. 5 times over. Lecornu was only appointed on September the 9th and resigned on the 6th of September. Why though? When Lecornu took office, he promised a rupture, a clear break from the chaos of the last government. But that didn't really happen. His new cabinet looked almost exactly like the old one, mostly because he couldn't find any real middle ground between the left and the right. On top of that, there were rumors that Macron himself set a few red lines, blocking changes to key posts like the Minister for European Affairs and the Minister of Justice. And as a result, pretty much everyone from the far left LFI, the Socialists, the Republicans, and Le Pen's National Rally said they'd vote to censure his government. In other words, Lecornu probably would not have made it to the budget vote, and it would have just pushed France deeper into political instability. So instead, he quit. In his resignation speech, Lecornu pointed fingers in all directions. He blamed 3 things. Some wanted him to use Article 49.3, the emergency rule that lets a government pass laws without a vote, but he refused. He also said nobody was willing to compromise, and he added that too many politicians were already thinking about the 2027 presidential race, instead of actually governing the country. So the big question is, how does this political crisis affect France? And most importantly, what comes next? Before we look at the 3 possible scenarios, let's pause for a moment to talk about something that affects all of us online: privacy. Whether you're reading the news or streaming your favorite TV shows, your activity isn't as private as you might think. Internet providers, public Wi-Fi networks, and even the websites you visit can track exactly what you're doing. And sometimes it's not just about privacy, but access. Just over a month ago, our EUMS livestream was only available in the United States due to a YouTube issue in Europe. Viewers with a VPN like CyberGhost could watch as normal, while everyone else was blocked. That's why today's video is sponsored by CyberGhost VPN, trusted by millions worldwide and rated nearly perfect by its users. Simply select one of their over 100 locations before you browse to encrypt and reroute all of your traffic through their secure servers. Your activity and data is protected, even from CyberGhosts themselves. It also unlocks streaming libraries from other regions. For example, I love BBC's iPlayer, which is not available in Germany without a VPN like CyberGhost. It works on all major devices and operating systems, and you can protect up to 7 devices at the same time. Perfect for sharing with friends and family. So, use the link in the description and get 84% off, which is only €2 per month. And with a money-back guarantee, getting CyberGhost is a no-brainer. Back to the video and our 3 scenarios of what would likely happen next in France. Scenario 1. Macron appoints yet another prime minister. Number 6. And honestly, this one is still quite possible. In his resignation speech, Lecornu even hinted at it. He said, it wouldn't take much for things to work out, suggesting that behind closed doors, opposition parties were more open to compromise on France's debt problem than their fiery public statements might suggest. So, if Macron does decide to name a new prime minister, he's really only got two options: someone from the center or someone from the left, likely from the Socialist Party. But honestly, picking another centrist would be a political death wish. He has tried that 5 times already, and every single time chaos followed almost immediately afterwards. So yeah, probably not a good idea. And that leaves the left-wing option. It's not perfect, but it might at least secure some socialist votes in the parliament. The name doing the rounds is Olivier Faure, the socialist leader, generally seen as a calm and diplomatic figure. Still though, even this move probably wouldn't bring lasting stability. Most parties are already calling for new elections, and both the far right and conservatives said they'd vote against any left-wing government. And with the 2026 budget vote fast approaching, it's hard to see anyone building real consensus, meaning that by November, even Prime Minister number 6 might already be toast. Nonetheless, we'd give this scenario about a 40% chance of happening. Moving on to scenario 2, Macron could call for new legislative elections, what is known as a dissolution of the National Assembly. But this move is very risky. Macron could lose even more seats, potentially giving more power to the far left or far right. The National Rally, led by Marine Le Pen and Jordan Bardella, has been gaining popularity and could capitalize on the situation to increase its influence. The polls are not exactly favorable for Macron right now, and so it's unlikely it would end well for him. But some even think Macron might have a bigger strategy in mind, deliberately letting the far right govern. The logic goes like this: if they take power now, they'll have to deal with the messy realities of running the country, and if their policies prove unpopular, it could backfire, leaving them weaker by the time the 2027 presidential elections comes around. But yeah, this is very risky, but it's starting to become more and more likely, and therefore we give it a 35% chance of happening. And then there's scenario 3, the big one. Macron resigns. And really, there are only 2 ways this could happen: resignation or impeachment. Publicly, Macron keeps saying there's no way he'll resign, and that he'll stay in office until 2027. But of course, politicians always say that. Admitting otherwise would basically be game over. Behind the scenes though, it's not entirely unthinkable. Some commentators even suggest resignation could be used as a strategy to block Marine Le Pen from the presidency. You see, Le Pen was convicted of embezzling EU funds and handed a 5-year ban from holding public office. She's appealing the decision, but the verdict won't come until next year. So if Macron were to call a presidential election now, the far right would likely have to put another candidate forward. Most likely Jordan Bardella, which could leave them in an even weaker position. And then there's impeachment, what the French constitution calls destitution. But this is even less realistic. It is a long and complicated process, and you need 2/3 majorities in both the National Assembly and the Senate. And even then, the case goes to the High Court, made up of MPs and senators, where another 2/3 vote would be required to remove the president. So, in practice, unless you're talking about treason or blatant constitutional violation, it's just not going to happen. Nonetheless, Macron stepping down is a real possibility, and we give it a 25% chance of happening. So yeah, the mood in France is super tense. On the far right, Marine Le Pen and Jordan Bardella's National Rally are calling for new legislative elections, arguing the government has no mandate. They're less keen on a presidential vote though, as Le Pen is still barred from running. On the far left, Jean-Luc Mélenchon and La France Insoumise want both new elections and Macron's impeachment, as Mélenchon thinks this is probably his best shot at winning the presidency. The socialists aren't pushing for new elections. They want a left-leaning prime minister, saying that the left still holds the most seats. And the Republicans, many actually blame them for this mess. They demanded 1/3 of the cabinet posts, despite holding just 48 out of the 577 seats, and kept refusing deals with the socialists, making the government unworkable. Now, they don't win elections either though, as they've been polling terribly. This is what I think. Out of the 3 options we've looked at, Macron will probably go for yet another prime minister. The only way that could actually work though is if he goes left and brings in the socialists. Yet, the only real winner of this entire ordeal is the far right. They've actually managed to look calm and united, while everyone else seems chaotic. They've never been in power either, so they can't really be blamed for the mess, and that makes them look like the responsible ones, at least for now. As for Macron, I think it's basically over. A left-wing prime minister might buy him some time, but probably only until November, when the budget negotiations will ultimately fail. After that, new elections would most likely lead to the same deadlock we already have today, just with more delay. A true reset would only come if Macron resigned, but even then, with parliament still divided, the same problems would remain. And of course, for the European project, this could be tragic and a loss of a heavyweight. At its core, this is a cultural issue. French politics isn't built for compromise. The two-round system has trained parties to aim for total majorities, not cooperation, and that has to change. A wild idea could be a new republic, through a referendum, maybe introducing proportional representation. But even then, without a change in political culture, France would probably end up right back here again. Thank you so much for watching, and let us know what you think in the comments. Also, subscribe to the channel and like the video if you enjoy this type of content. And make sure you check out CyberGhost VPN if you want your privacy protected online. Find the link in the description below. And lastly, thank you to our presidents, Jan Schauke, Christian Peter HGVD, Daniel Unite Europe, Stefan and Kiki Loxen. See you in the next video.